Well, good morning everybody. Welcome back to Shutters and Speed. Today we've got another episode in the series that is Meet the Classic Bike, and we have this superb machine in front of us here, and we have the gentleman who owns it to my left. So, as we say here in Norfolk, let's run them their titles, boy, and find out a bit more about both of them. Yeah, so welcome back to Shutters and Speed, and here we are in yet another episode in the series that is Meet the Classic Bike. And this one we have in front of us here is a blast from the past for me. I sort of hankered after one of these, never did actually own one, but came pretty close at times. And I've been given the opportunity to have a look at this and give it a spin round and see how we get on with it. So, this is Pete, our good friend, who's the owner of this fantastic machine, and he is the one who's given us the opportunity to have a look at it today. Now, Pete is not necessarily, I think he would freely admit, a Japanese bike aficionado. He's more into the old British bikes, I think you'll find, but he dropped onto this, and here we are today. So, Pete, how did you get hold of it, mate?
It just come up at the right price at the right time.
And that's about it?
That's about it.
Yeah, and you fancied it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
My first bike was a Kawasaki 100 in 1977. And then I went up to a 250 Suzuki Hustler. But you kept seeing these. And you had the Kawasaki's and the Yamahas, but there's just something about these.
Yes,
it's a look.
Because the thing is about these, isn't it? In the sort of mid-70s, you had what was the GT750, which was the three-cylinder air-cooled, water-cooled two-stroke.
Suzuki kept going with the 250s.
Yeah.
The triples.
Yes.
And they kept going when everyone else was doing four-strokes.
Yes.
And then eventually they give up. And this was it.
Yes, and they got it right pretty much first time, didn't they?
Pretty much, yeah.
The engine they bought out. I mean, Honda had their CB750 four-cylinder out for what? 4 or 5 years by then, maybe even longer.
Not longer.
Yeah. Was it 69 they bought that out?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's quite a while, isn't it? And then Kawasaki went from their two-stroke K8 series to the Z series that we know and love today.
But Kawasaki kept on with their two-strokes as well.
Yeah, did they?
Yeah,
right,
did.
That's interesting.
They were built in conjunction with each other.
But that Z900 was sort of an iconic bike, as we all know.
Yeah, that was a game changer.
But then when Suzuki came along with this, they sort of, I think they changed the sort of changed the ballpark yet again with this double overhead cam setup, because at the time I think the Honda was still single overhead cam, wasn't it?
It was at the time.
Yeah.
And I think they produced a double overhead cam pretty much when these did.
Yes, because I mean I had a CB900 at roughly this stage, about 81. And that's about the year of this, isn't it? So roughly the same time I bought the CB900, and that was their first foray, as I remember, into the double overhead cam series. So it's quite interesting to sort of go back over the history of this. So now you've got the thing. Presumably you're going to hang on to it and love it for as long as you wish, so to speak.
I'm not sure.
Because
I had a shoulder operation. I bought this, and then I've always had a bad shoulder, rotator cuff, and then I got a emergency operation appointment come through, and then after that, it's a little bit heavy.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm still waiting for this one to be done.
Okay. But you still like, obviously love it as a bike, as a sort of a mark of the generation and so on. Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
Absolutely. And the wonderful thing about this one is, Pete, is the fact that you've kept it in this sort of, how can I put this? It's got lovely patina. Sometimes bikes like this are done up, as we've said many times before in episodes of the Meet the Classic Bike series. A lot of bikes are done up to the nth degree, and every nut and bolt is shining and all that. But it's so lovely to see a bike like this, because you've got to bear in mind, of course, when we were buying these in the sort of late 70s and early 80s, we were buying these as our only form of transport, weren't we?
Yeah. And then once these got established, all the aftermarket suppliers got involved, And you could buy, I mean, this is an aftermarket seat, it's not the original seat.
No, no.
But you could buy exhausts, different handlebars, everything.
Yes.
And yeah.
Like people went to town on them, didn't they?
But I like original.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be shiny and it doesn't have to be pristine. I just like original. I like a bike to look its age.
Absolutely, and this certainly does that, but in a nice way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, I think we've had a fair old history into the history of this bike and Pete and his thoughts on it. But the next thing we need to do is find out how she rides. So let's go for a spin. But before we go for a spin, as ever, let's have a look around this fabulous looking machine. So here we are out on the mighty GS750E, and already it's just as I'd hoped. I'm out with my good friend Mick ahead, and we on a video that we did a while ago. He's on the same bike, the Triumph TR7, and if you want to have a look at that video when we had a ride on that machine, a link will appear in the top right hand corner of the screen here. For you to go and have a look at that should you wish for. But we're just making our way along these bumpy roads here at in Emneth, and then we're going to be going onto a sort of a twisty section of road, nice smooth section which will be hopefully enjoyable. But already the enjoyment that I felt when I first had a go on one of these about 40 years ago. My mate Sybil, or Chris as he's known normally, but he's affectionately known as Sybil, had one of these, and I just bought a CB900. And anyway, I went round his one day and he said, would you like to have a go on a GS750? And I said, yeah, I would, which was all right. And it was great. And this bike is exactly how I remember it. It's quick, it's nimble, and the gear change is just as slick as I remember. I can remember thinking, my word, I think I might have made the wrong move here. But you know, it is what it was, and I stuck with my CB750. But you know, it was great fun. I know that Pete has let Mick have this bike in his possession for a while because he's not by association, I think, associated with any Japanese genre, as it were. He's mainly British bikes, but he came across this machine, as we mentioned earlier, and Mick has had it in his possession, knowing that we was going to be taking it out for a ride, and he's been fettling it a little, making sure the carbs are okay, and all that kind of thing. And you know, he's done a great job because it's pulling beautifully. You know, it's just that silky smooth 4-cylinder engine that everybody knows about in the time that all that time ago. And actually, I have to say, I've had a go on several classic bikes recently, as you all know, and the feel of the brakes is actually really quite good. And you can put it into a, oh my word, it's fantastic. Look at that, look. It tracks, it steers. Wow. You know, we are going along quite nicely here. I was a bit wary when I set off because this particular section of road is obviously very bumpy, and I wondered how that would handle that. I can remember a while ago when I had go on a Lambretta scooter along here, it was a bit hairy, to say the least. But this is handling this fantastically well, and I already feel confident enough to sort of, you know, go at quite good speeds, and because I've got all that grunt of that silky smooth 4-cylinder engine below me. Yep, it is everything that I remembered. I've been talking to Mick leading up to this day when I had a go on this, and he was saying how much he had enjoyed taking it out for test spins after he'd been fettling it, and he's not sure that he wanted to give it back, and I can see why. And I can also understand now why Pete, who was originally thinking about selling it, he's decided to keep it. And I think he's made the right move, because it just is wonderful to ride. So we're making our way now onto a much more sort of twisty but smooth section of road, and I think this is where we all really benefit or reap the rewards of the work that people have done on this bike over the years to keep it in this sort of order, and to be able to take it out and have a spin. Yes, Mick, I'm right behind you. We'll soon be coming into a national, and then we can sort of really see what this thing's got to offer. But I'm sure, from what I can remember, it will be brilliant. Here we go. Oh, what a wonderful ride this is. Fantastic. We are going for it. Woo! Oh yes sirree, that is magical, and the way it goes through these corners is just fabulous. Better bring it down a bit, but wow, this thing has got some punch, as I remember. What a superb ride out it is. And the brakes, now then, when I tried the Suzuki GS750E and many other earlier two-strokes, the brakes were a little iffy, it has to be said, but the brakes on this are really quite progressive, strong feeling, absolutely brilliant. This is a well-sorted machine, and you know, it goes and handles and steers and brakes, and I really do have to question whether you can improve on this. You know, when you look at how, when we're just sort of hoodwinked, if you like, into riding modern bikes, you know, you find that you get sort of seduced by all the modern technology, but when something is well sorted, as well sorted as what this is, then, you know, you do wonder. This is actually flying along here superbly well. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, so as I was saying earlier, we're now on our way back to Mick's place, and you know, I've got another chance to just put this thing through a series of bends, and which I think will be a huge pleasure, a huge pleasure. Sometimes even the low speed corners, you know, doing these, as I've mentioned many times before on a lot of my videos, some of these low speed bends are really quite pleasing to take. As I said earlier as well, that when you sort of point the thing at a series of bends, it just really seems to track so beautifully. There is no problem with handling or steering, and it just flies. The engine, it's turbine smooth, it makes a lovely sound, and there's power everywhere. It's so well sorted. Stuffing it into a bend, and you know you're going to come out the other side in the right direction where you intended. Absolutely brilliant. And I know I'm waxing lyrical a lot here, but I just can't help it. This is yet another opportunity for me to relive my past, and I've got a smile on my face a mile wide. So thank you, Pete, so much for allowing me to ride this fabulous machine. God, here we go. Look at this, look. Whoa! Woohoo! What a ride! Absolutely stunning. Well, they've because I enjoyed it so much, and I think they could see the smile on my face, they've sent me out again. And I am so grateful to Pete for allowing me to do this. So I'm just taking this bit of road again, and we're taking a slightly different route back. So, you know, I hope you come along with me and enjoy the ride. As I've said earlier and in previous videos where I've tried out these wonderful old machines, you know, this one in particular, it handles and steers, and I know I keep going on about this, but it handles and steers in such a way that you know, it brings back so many memories. I only had the briefest of rides on one of these back in the day, in the early 80s, and I can remember then how wonderful they were. So much so that I did wonder whether I needed to trade in the old CB900 for one of these. Such was my affection for it, as it were. But I obviously didn't. I hung on to the old CB900, which was a great bike, don't get me wrong. But you know, and having got back on one right now, what I'm finding is that, you know, it's lost none of its appeal. I could quite happily jump on this and ride anywhere in the country, and I wouldn't have any qualms about doing that. It's a big, wide, comfortable seat. It cruises along, you know, it gets along nicely, but it also just ticks along in top gear at pretty much any speed. You know, and what more can you ask for, really? Yeah, I had to just anchor up back there a little sharper than I perhaps otherwise would have liked. But I have as much confidence actually in the front brake on this as I do on my own Yamaha Tracer 900, and I think that's quite a compliment, because I feel my Tracer's brakes are brilliant, and I suppose it might not have quite have the stopping power that my Tracer has, but the feel and the progressiveness is really good, and you know, everything is so well sorted, it really is. Oh yes, here we go around a nice sweeping bend. And even situations like that, where the tractability of the thing is brought into play, and you know, it works so well. Have I got any criticisms? Have I got anything that I'm not happy about? No. The short answer to that is no. Like I said earlier, I would happily ride this anywhere in the country without any qualms or worries at all. Absolutely superb. You just look round the corner, put it where you want it to go, and it goes there. What more can you ask? Yeah, so as we make our way through this quiet fen village, I would yet again just like to say to Pete, thank you so much for reliving my youth. Thank you so much.
How was that?
Well, Pete, as ever, whenever I do one of these, I'm always blown away by, the bike, the way it handles and performs, and this is absolutely no exception. It's been fantastic.
Cool.
I've enjoyed it. It's taken me back to my youth, and I do thank you, so much for allowing me to take this thing out for a spin.
You're more than welcome.
And it just amazes me how willing people are, people such as yourself that have got collections of bikes, and they're allowing morons like me to go and have a spin on them, which is fantastic. So thank you so much for that.
I think I'm the biggest moron in this picture.
So I think, having said all that, I think it's time to call a halt to proceedings here and now. So I'd just like to thank Pete for allowing me to take this fantastic machine out for a spin today. And I'd also like to thank you for watching. Now, I do hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and if you have, then I would hope that you would take the time to like and subscribe. So, without further ado, until next time, as we say here in Norfolk, do you keep on a-troshin', boy. Yeah, so welcome back to Shutters and Speed. Well, we are in another series of, start again, Stephen. Yeah, well, welcome back to Shutters and Speed, and here we are, yes, in another series, oh, fuck, brilliant.
And look, no fucking oil. I missed the oil underneath.
That is brilliant, Pete, thank you.
So he was saying, like, be honest and that, didn't he? So is he going to do all this in the same sequence that he's filmed it? He even goes to the trouble of putting his camera back on like he's going out.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So what are you saying then? Are you saying this is some kind of...
Tim Burton would have done it slightly different.
Fantastic.
And cut. Once more with feeling.
Tim Burton definitely would have done it different.